how's it going, everybody? It is Josh Thomas here from TheBitBlock, and I just wanted to jump in here at the very beginning to say that in our previous discussion where myself, Nintendon, and Rogers Base were discussing what we thought of the Nintendo Switch presentation, we were having so much fun and getting into talking so much that we actually eventually went off into a totally new topic, and I thought it would be better to put that as a separate discussion, which is what you're listening to right now. We're going to be chatting about whether or not we think the Nintendo Switch will in fact be Nintendo's one video game console moving forward, or if we think they will actually in fact release a new handheld system at some point in the not too distant future. All right, let's join the conversation.
on a side note of that Game of the Year discussion, by the way, yeah, I made a prediction at the very end of it, and some people might not remember it, where I said that Nintendo would at least announce 5 new 3DS games. They already announced 3, and it is not even the end of January yet.
Yep, and we'll probably get more at E3. So I think you're right.
Because they announced Goodbye Box Boy, they announced FE Echoes and FE Warriors for 3DS.
I kind of want the 3DS to go die now, to be honest with you. I kind of want it to just go die in a corner somewhere. I kind of feel like 3DS,
the way it is now, it's sort of like, it's their insurance plan, right? It's like on the off chance Switch doesn't do well, at least we have this other thing that's going to make us a lot of money this year.
And I think that they could still really sell software, especially with the 2DS now being $99.
Yeah, I mean, there's tons of new games that are coming out this year. We have Dragon Quest VIII just came out, right? Then we've got Pikmin DS, which we still haven't seen. We haven't seen more of that Pikmin game. We've got the Pikmin.
And Pucci and Yoshi's Woolly World
Yoshi and
just
Pucci
came out
Woolly
in
World.
Japan.
The new Fire Emblem,
which
Echoes.
is a really good version of that game.
Yeah, it's a really good version.
What else? I'm trying to think. I mean, there's a lot of stuff. Yeah, like you said, Goodbye Box Boy. Yeah.
I feel like, though, I gotta say, though, in a year, if they're still actively making, like, interesting 3DS games, I'm going to be kind of annoyed.
I think the only way that happens, though, is if the Switch doesn't have a good first year.
If the Switch is bombing,
yeah, right.
But then you also have this problem of it's like, well, if the Switch isn't doing so well, maybe you need to make more games for it, so maybe the answer isn't to put more games on the other system. For me, I'm going to say this. I'm going to make a prediction. The Switch is going to be bigger than people are giving it credit. Most people are giving it credit for. And I think we're going to see Nintendo handheld type sales numbers with this.
Yeah.
You know, the 3DS did really well, DS did really well. I think we're going to be looking at something in between DS and 3DS numbers. I think people are greatly underestimating just how many games the Switch is going to get because it's Nintendo putting all of its energy, all of its focus into one device. And if they continue to do that, it's going to be what gives them major success.
Like I talked about this on Twitter today. I'm not so sure yet. Like
about the Switch being a success?
No, about Switch being their only eggs in their basket.
I feel like it has to. I mean, I feel like they need to make that bold move. And I know they're not going to publicly say it. They're not going to come out and be like, hey, guess what? We're doing it. We're going with this one thing.
Even if they would do that, they would have put a lot more focus on the handheld mode, which they are not doing.
Yeah, I'm kind of with Don on this, actually. I think, like, even Miyamoto the other day, he gave that interview about Breath of the Wild, and they were talking about the idea of, like, potentially putting another Zelda game on the Switch eventually. And he's like, yeah, well, whenever we put together, like, a new system, we always like to make a Zelda game for that system. So, and then he said in that interview, if we're ever going to make, let's say, another handheld system, then the next Zelda would probably be for that. And so, to me, the way I see this split happening is I almost kind of believe Nintendo when they say the Switch is going to be the third pillar. And the reason I say this is I think it's going to be a different type of environment than we've seen from Nintendo before. I think you're right in saying they're going to put all their eggs in one basket in terms of the hardcore. I think the big hardcore franchises are going to be all on the Switch. And I feel like the DS family or the handheld family, like the exclusively handheld family, is going to almost become an exclusively children's brand, where it's sort of going to be like their budget system, where you could play these like cheaper, smaller budgeted titles exclusively for handheld that like is very child friendly. Like I can't see children holding a Switch like at the age of 4 or 5.
I agree with that, though.
You know what I mean?
But there's a reason that they made the 2DS to begin with.
Yeah. I think they were sort of testing the waters, and I think if anything, if they do end up making another quote-unquote handheld, I could maybe see them releasing almost like a 2DS version of the Switch, where it's like only in handheld mode, and it's like, you know, made with like plastic, and you could drop it, it's not going to break. That's kind of how I feel about it moving forward. And maybe you're right in saying that like all their eggs are going to be in one basket, putting like the handheld and the console games on it. But I feel like there's either going to be like a budgeted version or there's going to be something that we just like aren't seeing yet.
I'm sure that there's something in R&D that we don't know about.
Yeah.
I'm gonna go out on a limb and say no. I'm gonna say that the reason they're calling it more of a home console that you can take with you is because they do not
You can
want
say
to.
you can say no, but is that kind of ignorant to say? Because honestly,
No,
this
because-
is Nintendo after all. I don't.
No, but Nintendo knows. They know that there is no future
Do
going
they?
forward trying to balance
Do
two. They cannot have more than one video game system anymore if they want to continue to make video game systems.
But do they? Like honestly, I don't.
Do they know?
I don't think so.
I think they know. I think the Switch in and of itself is proof they know, and they're just choosing their wording very carefully because they know saying the wrong thing just once will blow up on every website, and they'll be like, well, 3DS is dead, Nintendo's out of the handheld system thing, blah, blah, blah. And as far as like the little cheaper kid-friendly games, that's what mobile is for. That's
kind of the counter argument that I was just going to make to play devil's advocate to what I just said is I feel like no, but I literally was just going to bring that up is I feel like them testing the waters with mobile, and regardless of what people say about like Pokemon Go is dead, Mario Run, oh my god, why is it $10? Well, if you look on the App Store, number 1 is still Pokemon Go.
Here's my counter argument: why would you give a child a mobile phone?
Ask parents,
Yeah,
but they do. I know so many young kids that have mobile phones.
Yep.
But I honestly think that there is still potential for that market. And even if it's like a Switch Mini, I think there's something happening in that space.
I'm not disagreeing with you. I agree with that. I think there is also sort of a market there for like the aged 3 to 8, like the really young child market. I think there is something there, a potential market there for a dedicated handheld system. But I also see where Josh is coming from, and I do think like if they continue to do these pushes on mobile that are successful, and like if Fire Emblem Heroes blows up, and I think it's going to blow up, like that looks like a game I really want to play, and that's not something I expected from a mobile Nintendo game, but I actually think that looks really good. I think if they continue to find success on that platform, I don't really think they need the handheld anymore.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
I'm not going to roll it out eventually.
Yeah, I think it's weird.
It's also...
It's weird to predict, though, based on like what we know so far of this year, because things could go so down the tubes for them, or things could look really, really up. And I don't think it will either. I agree with Josh. I think it will be good.
Regardless if it's a Switch Mini or something else. Like, I don't think we'll know until 2018.
Yeah.
I think we won't... I think... As far as, like, will they ever modify the Switch in some way to update it or change something, and then that'll be, like, the new Deluxe Switch or Mini Switch or whatever, that's absolutely a possibility. But I think it'll be sort of like what with Xbox and PlayStation are doing, like, now, the way they make these kind of slim version or something like that.
No, I think they wouldn't, because the tablets are slim enough for huge hands. I think that...
Well, I don't mean literally slim, I just mean, like, it'll be an alteration of it.
Yeah, but I think they would make one maybe for a smaller age demographic.
What's wrong with the regular Switch for a smaller
I just feel like with children,
I'm not going to give my 7-year-old cousin the Switch to hold. Absolutely not.
Right.
Well, is that because you just love the Switch so much, or is it because...
I don't trust my 7-year-old cousin with a Switch.
But here's the deal, like, I can't tell, I don't think there's a single, like, parents in their 30s, like, there's parents in their 30s, right? I don't think there's a single group of parents in their 30s that have kids that do not trust their kids with an iPad or their old phone or something like that. Like, you see it all the time. When I'm out at a Target, when I'm at a mall, there's always kids, even kids in a stroller, that have an iPad that they're messing around with something on. That is where Nintendo's market is in the future for
I agree with that, but I also kind of agree with Don that I think... if we get a dedicated... I agree with both of you, which is weird. And I hate to, like, take this stance, but I like, really feel this. Is I feel like the next handheld, I think we could get a new dedicated handheld, but I think it could also be, like, a Switch Mini, only, like, the Joy-Cons don't come off of it. Like, it's just, like, a console.
That is a possibility.
Where it's just that, and it's, like, plastic, and
games?
it's all one piece, and you could play Switch games on it, and they call it, like, the Switch Mini or something. And
okay,
they make it at a budget
like
price,
the same games.
No, but it's not the same thing, because like they could easily make that for a much cheaper cost than them developing the Switch as it is. And I think that could become the children's market system at maybe a price of like $99 to like $150. And then that could be really, really successful for them. And then they could also add those sales to the sales of the overall Nintendo Switch. Because when you look at the sales for the 2DS, those sales still fall in line with 3DS sales. Those are all still their handheld sales. And I think that could be what this eventual Switch Mini could be for them.
Yeah, I think that also makes a whole lot of sense.
Yeah.
So that isn't what I'm arguing against. I totally think that could happen. But you're saying it will play the same games that a normal Switch would play,
Yeah,
correct?
yeah.
So that could happen absolutely. What I'm saying is you will never see a time. I'm calling it right here, right now. Josh Thomas, January 20th, 2017.
Inauguration day.
There will never be another time when Nintendo has two systems, one to play on a TV, one to play on the go, that gets different games. Their games will all play on one platform unless they're mobile. But Nintendo is done with the handheld home console market. You can't do it anymore. It's not the 90s. It's just, you don't do it anymore. And if you're going to do it, you do it with mobile phone games. They're doing that now. The path to their future and the success is going to be all cannons firing to the Switch. And that is going to build such an immaculate library of games that nobody is going to be able to resist it. And I've said this before, but I'll say it again. Imagine every Nintendo game that came out on the Wii, the 3DS, and the Wii U between 2010 to 2016. Retail games, eShop downloadable games, virtual console games, the third-party games. Imagine every one of those games on one unified platform. There is no way that system would fail. It's mathematically impople.
I'm getting so excited. Like, you
saying.
literally said that, and I feel like if I was a girl, I would be getting wet right now. That is such an ideal scenario. Like, this needs to happen.
That's what we're living.
Yeah.
That's what we're living right
But
now. I think people need to realize
I'm just going to say that I'm going to keep that door open, just in case. But,
I'm slamming it shut. No, I'm just kidding.
But I'm sure they have something already, regardless of it's going to happen or not. Because they will always have a backup plan, even if the Switch doesn't continue to impress. But
Nintendo is like Willy Wonka in the Chocolate Factory. They're always experimenting with stuff down there, stuff that we're never going to see. I mean, Vitality Sensor. They've got a million things like that Vitality Sensor that'll maybe never see the light of day. But it's just there, just in case.
I'm calling it now Vitality Sensor Joy-Con accessory that you click in and you play Eternal Darkness with it. That's boom. Calling it now.
But honestly, we'll see. I think it could go either way. But in an ideal world, the Switch would be like the only system, and they would just make a Switch Mini for the smaller market. But
I agree.
But it's we'll see in a year from now. We cannot predict a system. That's really hard to do.
I'm predicting the Switch is going to be a very big success. I'm putting my reputation out on the line there. People can mock me for decades. It's going to be. I think it's going to have. This is my prediction with the Switch sales.
I hope so. Really hope so. I think it has the potential to do so, especially with, again, the software that they have in the first year. But, weird things happen in this industry. That's all I say.
I'm predicting this, okay? With the Wii, we saw sales go crazy. It was pandemonium. It was this huge thing. They were just nuts. And it was like really quick. Mm-hmm. And then it just fell real flat towards like last year or so. With the Wii U, with the 3DS, they sort of went very slowly, I think, and they eventually took off. I think with the Switch, we're going to see probably one of the most healthy sales situations with a Nintendo system that we've seen in a long time. It's going to be like a really nice, chugging along, steady flow of continuing to go up and up, and I think it's going to be caused by Nintendo finally releasing games at an appropriate time and not making us wait like 6 months.
And I also, the more I think about it too, I know we're kind of getting off topic and we're talking about like the future of the Switch in addition to our initial impressions, but I think this is
already a second discussion.
Oh, is it really? No, I think this is fine though. I think this is good. Keep this all as one discussion because I think this is all really important when you look at like the first year of the Switch and you think about its future and you think about like the potential for its success.
Absolutely,
because the more I think about it, and I put out a huge Twitter thread about this, and a lot of people disagree with me. I feel this strongly now, and it's a bold prediction, and I'm keeping with it. I think this E3, I think we're not going to get. Okay, let me preface this by saying something. I saw a lot of people on Twitter the day of the Switch thing saying this is amazing, but the thing I'm waiting for is Smash Brothers. Like a lot of people. There were a lot of people who were mainstream people who said this was amazing, but I expected a Smash Brothers announcement. And the more I thought about it, the more I was sort of like shocked that because they were talking about Mario Odyssey and that's like a holiday game, the more I was shocked that we didn't see that Smash 4 port that was rumored. And I'm going to go out on a limb, and I think it's bold, and I don't think a lot of people are going to agree with me. I think Smash Brothers for Nintendo Switch, and I'm going to say that's what it's called. I think it's going to be called Smash Bros. For Nintendo Switch. I think that game is basically a Splatoon 2 level sequel. I think it's something that is going to look very similar to Smash 4, but is going to be an entirely new game. I think it might carry over the roster, and it might seem like an enhanced port, but I think there's going to be a lot of stuff there, and they are going to market it as Smash 5. And I think there's going to be more characters than we expected. And I say this because I'm looking at like the strength of their new IPs right now, and there's a lot of like Inklings, Box Boy, the ARMS characters, Ribbon Girl. There's a lot of new characters they could add to it. There are also a lot of third-party relationships that are very strong with them right now, with Dragon Quest and Bomberman. And I could see that game, and then bringing back like Ice Climbers and Wolf and stuff like that. I could see them really putting a lot of time and effort into that game. And because all the dev tools are already there, I don't think Sakurai needs to direct it, and I'm also going to make the prediction that I think this game, this next Smash game, is going to be at E3, and it's not going to be directed by Sakurai, that it's still going to be developed by Bandai Namco, and I think it's going to be the equivalent of Smash 5, and I think it's coming out sooner rather than later. Because there's no reason that would not have been at the Switch presentation. All right, go ahead.
My counter-argument here would be like 2 points, right? I think that Sakurai is too involved with making characters to let that go. And secondly, I think that Bandai Namco is also having their hands full on porting Tekken 7 over to Xbox One and PlayStation 4 right now.
I don't know. I honestly feel like we're gonna get a Smash Bros at E3. I don't even know why I feel this way. I don't ever usually feel this way about a prediction.
And I'll be honest, it's in my mind, it's gonna be likely a port of everything from Smash 4.
And I'm not like, I think that's likely still too. And like, if this doesn't happen, like what I'm saying doesn't happen, I'm not gonna be disappointed. And I think it'll be good enough for a lot of people who skipped the Wii U generation if they just add a bunch of characters and a couple new stages and add the 3DS content. I think that'll be fine for the mainstream consumer. But I think they have the potential to actually go all out. Because if you look at the development time from 64 to Melee, that was a 2-year development cycle. Smash 4 has been out since 2014. And if they release a new Smash Brothers like at the beginning of 2018, that doubles the development cycle from 64 and Melee. And the only reason I feel that Brawl and Melee had such a long development cycle is because for that game, they were developing an online infrastructure, and that's something they hadn't done before. And the reason why it was so long for the jump between Brawl and Smash Wii U is because they were simultaneously developing with a handheld version in mind. And they don't need to do that anymore. It's just going to be on one. They could port over all the characters. They have the dev tools. I really strongly think this, and I think having Smash at E3 is going to, especially alongside like a Pokemon port and like Pikmin and maybe like a Metroid game, it has the potential to be the strongest E3 for them in a very, very long time. And I think just saying the word Smash Brothers, even if it is a port, is going to bring a lot of people over and really convince people to pick up the system.
We'll see. I am definitely all in favor for a Smash 4 port, but I don't necessarily think that there's a new game being developed right now.
I could go either way, honestly. You've sort of convinced me, Roger, and I know I tweeted to you earlier. I was like, nah, it ain't happening. I said I'd
You'd buy me
Rogers,
Cheesecake Factory every day at E3. Yeah.
Yeah. If Roger is correct, he's getting a lot of free Cheesecake Factory food from me. I mean, part of me thinks, hey, when are if they release the new Smash Brothers, that's like actually a genuine like new Smash Brothers. That is a pretty big system seller, really early on.
And like it makes no sense because they know how important that franchise is. Like Reggie's even mentioned it in like the early interviews for Switch about like you could play handheld games like Splatoon, and local multiplayer handheld like Splatoon and Smash Brothers. Like he's already name dropped Smash Brothers, and the fact that we did not see it. If it's just a port, like even if it wasn't a new character, even if they just like threw up the logo and said, by the way, Smash 4's coming, like they know how much of an impact that would have. And I think the reason they're holding off is because it's going to be a bigger game than people anticipate. And I'm not saying like it's going to be completely revamped, like, oh my god, new engine. I'm saying they are going to use the dev tools from Smash 4. They've already perfected the formula. And I think they're just going to build upon it, and they're going to release it as Smash Brothers for Nintendo Switch with a lot of new characters and a lot of new stages, and I think it's going to be at E3.
So you're basically calling it Smash 4.3?
I'd say, you mean like, no, I'd say like, if anything, Smash 4.5. But I think they are looking at it as the next iteration.
Smash 3DS 4.1, Smash for Wii is 4.2,
oh, maybe.
Smash for Switch 4.3.
I don't think so though. I think there's gonna be a lot of stuff, and I think people are going to be surprised when they see that Smash Brothers game.
Give me Smash Run in split screen or something on the TV and make
That'd
it
be great.
Make it to where I can actually hit the other players and see them, and that'd be pretty.
That'd be pretty cool.
Pretty grand. I think. Listen, I think at least we can all agree on a sure bet that Smash Brothers will be at E3 this year.
Yes, 100%. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it'd be amazing if it's not. So yeah, that is our Switch presentation discussion. That's quite the chit chat there.
Yeah.
I want to thank you, gentlemen, for joining me. Don, where can people find you on the internet?
You can find me everywhere on the internet, sir. But you can
Literally everywhere.
But you can find me on Twitter, which is @Nintendan. That's NENTENDAAN. You can find me on YouTube, the same with an 1 at the end, Nintendo 1. Go Nintendo, Nintendo World Report, NF Magazine, and a whole bunch of other places. And there you go.
And Roger, where can they find you?
Yeah, you can find me at the Etika World Network on YouTube, and I'm also at Etika W Network on Twitter. So be sure to follow me.
Hey,
watch really dank memes.
Watcher. Footlong.
Footlong Joy-Con boys. There you go. All right.
Subway
idea what's
Footlong.
transpiring
Subway
here.
Footlong.
$5, man. $5.
You can find Roger at Roger's Base anywhere on the
right.
internet. You can also find him at Pandora this summer.
Yep.
Living amongst
With
the
you.
avatars. With
Playing
me.
Switch.
Being
Well, actually, we should
in a blue
We should
suit?
play Mario Kart. We should play Mario Kart in Pandora. How cool would that be?
That would be a pretty amazing. Oh my god,
We can.
we gotta bring
man,
our Switch.
I know.
We gotta
We
bring the
will.
Switch for the long lines and
Oh,
stuff.
we have to.
Oh my god. All right. Well, I'm. It's funny. It will occasionally like click in to me that I can bring the Switch with me in places, and I get really excited. Like when I'm flying to LA to go to E3.
Yeah,
to,
you'll be able to play Zelda. You'll be able to play Bomberman.
I'll be able to have that with it. It's gonna be so
Hyperclips.
cool. And apparently, according to the trailer, I'm gonna meet like some really cute blonde girl when I'm like waiting for the plane to arrive. It's gonna be.
You'll
great.
meet Jocelyn 2.0, man.
You like Jocelyn,
Don't use
don't you?
Squidward.
I still have that damn
Dude, it's
video.
so good. Oh, man.
Thank you guys so very much for sitting in. We will see you soon.
Bye.